That's really, I think, that's hard to watch, I think, for anybody, and I'm sorry, Ms. Gibson-Brown, that you had to experience that. But I think it's important for the American public to see that video. That could happen to any person in this country. And some of what you said, there are kids in this house, show the warrant first. Where is the warrant? Shameful what you had to go through and your family had to go through. Now, Ms. Gibson-Brown, you are an American citizen, is that correct? You asked for a warrant, is that correct?
Yes.
And did they show you a valid warrant signed by a judge?
No, they did not.
They did not. Now, Mr. Schwank, before this new policy that you reported about, would it have been legal for these officers to come into Ms. Gibson's home without a warrant signed by a judge?
Thank you, Congressman. No, the answer is it would not have been legal either before or after this memo came out for them to go into that home.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Gibson, ICE brought overwhelming military-style force into your home. Is that not correct?
Correct.
They forced their way into your home with no warrant, correct?
Correct.
They put your children in danger. Is that how you felt?
Yes.
Can you think of any justification why this level of force, military force, would be needed to forcefully enter your home?
No, I can't think of any.
This is what happens when we disregard the Constitution, when we disregard the rights of people in this country. This is wrong, it's outrageous, and every person should be ashamed of our own government for causing this kind of terror, not just to you and to your own family and neighborhood, but to folks across this country. There's no other way to describe what they're trying to do than to terrorize communities and neighborhoods. I want to say I am sorry for what you've had to experience. I know that is not enough. This government should be not just apologizing to you, but they should try to right that wrong. And it's the obligation of all of us here in this room and across the country to stand up to this tyranny. So thank you. And Senator, I yield back.
Thank you, Congressman Garcia. I'm going to hold up two posters. One of them you've just seen is what happened at your home. The other is of a memo. Mr. Schwank, I think you'll recognize this memo. It is a memo written by Acting Director Lyons. We've seen it before at this hearing. It says, in effect, ICE officers should violate the Fourth Amendment. Were you taught or told that you should train ICE agents in accordance with this memo?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, on the very first day I arrived at Glencoe to teach, I was told that we were to instruct cadets to follow the instructions in this memo, but that we would not write down any of those instructions, that we would not keep a record that we taught it to them.
That's a critical point, because I asked Acting Director Lyons whether this memo was distributed, and he said, in fact, that it was with an email that so far they have failed to produce. What you're saying is that you were told not to reveal it, correct?
Thank you, Senator. Yes, I was told not to discuss this memo. In fact, when it was shown to me, I was told not to take notes on it, that I was not allowed to write down any part of it. And for the record, as an attorney for ICE and someone who routinely receives memos and memoranda issued by the agency, this had never crossed my desk before I arrived at the Academy.
So, in effect, you were told as an instructor on the law that you were to train ICE agents how to break the law. I think every American should be absolutely horrified by that fact. And you were not alone. This memorandum was the basis for training ICE agents generally, hundreds, thousands of them during this fiscal year. Let me ask you about topics that there were practical exams on. And I'm going to show you another chart, which, in effect, and you've seen it, it's difficult to decipher in this forum, but it depicts the topics of exams that were given, practical exams and coursework. You've testified as to the reduction. Is it a fact that there was an elimination, not just a reduction in hours of training by almost half, but also on critical substance matters, topics that should have been trained?
Thank you, Senator. That is accurate. What you're looking at on those two charts, the shorter one is the amount of testing that's given now in practical exams. The longer one are the practical exams that were given by ICE in its training program before the current surge training course. Those exams that you see there, the longer list, every single one of those was designed to test whether or not cadets could apply in the real world the things they were learning in the academy. Vital lessons on things like how to use their firearm safely, how to encounter an individual they intended to detain, much like Ms. Gibson Brown's husband. Classes that teach them how to do their job safely and lawfully were removed from testing. And what testing was left was reduced or essentially neutered by the way it was given. Tests that were designed and written to be closed book, where cadets were tested on what they could remember, because again, go back to, I said this earlier, officers have a split second to decide something. So everything we do is oriented to giving them that split second to act, and they have to know everything for it. We took away the ability to test whether they could.
But what those ICE officers did to Ms. Gibson Brown, what they did to countless people in Minneapolis, what they are continuing to do across the country was not the result of split-level decisions. It was the result of a conscious, purposeful, deliberate policy, carefully taught and trained. And in fact, the reduction in training, for example, on pistol use, on use of force, on other vital topics, was regrettable, but the effects were truly shocking. Let me ask you, because just in the time that we've released these documents, DHS has come forth with a statement, I'm going to quote it. Under these new improvements, candidates still learn the same elements and meet the same high standards ICE has always required. No subject matter has been cut. Is that statement accurate, Mr. Schwank?
Senator, that statement is not accurate, not in even the slightest sense.
It is untrue. Would you agree?
Sir, I would call it a lie.